And then, thank you very much. All right. It is good to see you. Welcome, 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 welcome. It's a fantastic, what is it? Thursday, isn't it? So welcome to our session today on what I'd like to call the Articulate 360 State Secrets. Now, it's only a very short session today, so we've got about 30 minutes up our sleeve, and we're going to use this just to have a look at about 4 or 5 little things to do with states that you may or may not be aware of when it comes to working with Storyline. Okay, before we get any further, first up, for those that don't know me, my name is Matt Blackstock. I'm the learning manager here at Be Online Learning. I see a lot of familiar names in the chat, so welcome back to all those people that have been with us previously. And if you're brand new and haven't been with Be Online Learning before, I also give you a hearty welcome too. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us this afternoon to spend some time with us. And yeah, I've got some more information for you at the end of today if you want to find out more about anything that we actually do as well. So I just want to say a big welcome, and I hope everyone's staying safe no matter where they are around the country at the moment. So just very briefly, guys, no doubt, we've got this little thing called a pandemic on, so you're probably all used to using Zoom or some sort of webinar-based software. The good thing is you don't need to do much in today's session. Honestly, it is a quick little webinar. If you've got any questions, I am happy for you to throw them in the chat. I will try and address them as we go through the actual session itself, but if I can't, I can address them at the end as well. I'm very, very conscious of the time, so I don't want to keep you for any longer than what you've put aside for this particular session. So key thing is there's a little gray drop down menu you'll see in your chat. And if you haven't got your chat open, just look for the chat icon or the more menu. And if you click on chat, that'll open up the icon for you so you'll be able to chat. And I'll just get you to change your little drop down menu here from all panelists to all panelists and attendees. That way, if you've got a question, everyone else can see your question as well. Or if you've got a comment or a thought or whatever the case may be, you can share it with other people as well. If you leave it at just panelists, then the only person that's going to see it is me. And I don't want to make it feel like I've missed what you've said. So please swap it on over, say good day to everyone, and then we'll kick off. And we've got a pretty big group today. We've got about 250 odd registered. So hopefully we'll have plenty of time for any questions after the session as well. Lots of highs are coming through. So yeah, guys, any questions, any comments, throw them in the chat as we go through. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm just going to close my office door here. And I just want to kind of draw our attention back to what we like to call the building blocks of Storyline. Because the one we're going to focus on today is that nice big indigo colored one, second from the top, which is called states. And for anyone that's done any training with us or anyone that's worked with states for a while, you remember that what a state is basically what something looks like. And the easiest way or the most simplest way we commonly use states is probably something like a hover state. In other words, you might have a button, a red button, and when you hover your mouse over it, maybe the color changes blue. And then when you move your mouse back off it, it changes back to the original color of red. So that's kind of the most basic way when it comes to states. A hover state is quite common. Other common built-in states we use within Storyline include the visited state, which changes what the button looks like or the item looks like once you click on it, because that kind of tells the learner as a visual cue that they've actually clicked on that item. And we can also use that to track whether a learner has visited all the various areas within a course itself. And then we've also got something like a selected state, which is also built in. And that might mean you might have 4 different buttons on the screen, maybe a bit of a click and reveal. And the selected state is what the button changes to so the learner knows which layer they're on or which information they're looking at. And when the learner clicks on a different button, the one that was in the selected state goes back to its normal state, and the new button they've clicked on hits off into the selected state. So that's probably how we've commonly used states as we go through our day-to-day development and building with Storyline. But what this session is about, it's about probably revealing a few other little cool things about states that you may or may not yet be aware of. Personally, I know with my own journey with learning Storyline, states was one of the most underutilized building blocks I ever used when I came to building. And it wasn't until I really had a chance to play with states in much detail and do some research and talk to other people in the industry that I worked out there's actually a lot more to them than what we think. And I just want to kind of share with you some very, very quick ones today. So for those of you that were in when we started off, you'll see that on the main index page, I had a couple of things. I had a shortcut to changing states with Illustrator characters, how you can import multiple states without having to physically create each one individually. And that's predominantly if you're using pictures to represent different states. I'm also going to play with the idea of animating states themselves, which is something you may or may not have played with when it comes to states. Now, I'm not talking about the buttons in their normal state. I'm talking about once you get into a hover state or revealing a hover state, rather than just changing colors or just showing some other text, it actually does a little animation or something similar as well. So we'll have a bit of a play with that and seeing how that goes. I'm also going to show you a great little secret, which you may not be familiar with, is that you can actually add an audio to a state as well. Now, why would I want to add audio to a state? Well, most of the time, if you want some audio to play, you've got to actually trigger that audio. Now, there's two ways you could do that. You could do that by actually importing it onto your timeline, and it just starts playing when the timeline starts. Or you could set up a trigger that presses a button which plays the audio for you. The joy about adding an audio to a state is you don't need a trigger. So once the actual item changes to that state, if it has an audio file connected to it, it'll automatically play that audio. So it just reduces the amount of triggers you have in your project, and also means that if you add the audio directly to the state, when it changes to that state, it'll automatically play that audio for you. So that comes in handy when you might want to look like a little dice rolling activity or something similar. So I'll have a bit of a play with that and show you about that. And the last one I'm going to show you is what I call the magic cut and paste secret, which is something that honestly I stumbled across, and it's something that I kind of share with most students now in our training. And I'm not going to say anything else about that at the moment, but I will show you what that means once we get to it at the end of today. All right, so let's get out of PowerPoint and let's get into Storyline. And what I want to do is I want to kind of show you this first little thing you can do when it comes to Illustrator characters. So what I've got here is I've got Dante. He's one of the newer Illustrator characters, and these Illustrator characters are predominantly available via the content library. And if you have a look in the states tab, I've just got the normal state. I haven't added any additional states or done anything fancy, whatever the case may be. So let's say I had a audio, some voiceover, and I wanted to have Dante reacting to that voiceover as the voiceover was read. Well, commonly what I would do is I'd go into edit states. I would add a new state, and maybe that new state I might make it a custom state. Maybe I might call it cheerful. I hit add, and then I go through the process of picking what expression, what pose, etc. that I want. And then I need to then add a trigger to actually change to that state when the audio gets to the relevant point. So the first thing I want to show you is a way that you can shortcut that entire process. So rather than going in and creating a brand new state, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go straight to the triggers. So let me show you in the timeline. This is what I've worked out. I've worked out that in my audio, I want Dante to look confused at the 3-second mark. I want him to look angry at the 6-second mark. I want him to be thinking about stuff at 9-second, talking at the 12-second mark. And when the timeline ends at 15 seconds, I want him to be happy. So I have no states created as is, but watch what I'm going to do. Let's create our first trigger. So my first trigger is I want to change the state. So let's change the state of our character to confused. And you can see that with the Illustrator characters, just before you get into the built-in states, you've got all of their expressions there as states as well. So I'm going to change that to confused. And I want that to happen when the timeline reaches the 3-second mark. Now watch what happens when I hit OK. When I hit OK, it automatically creates the state for me. It's taken the default confused state and it's dropped it into the actual program. Now, if I want to go and edit that state further, I certainly can. I can go edit states, select it, and I can make expression changes or whatever the case may be. So let's just quickly add those other ones. So we want to change the state of him to angry. So we'll change the state of him to angry. Yep. When the timeline reaches. Now you could change this to when they click a button or whatever the case may be, whatever suits you. Let's go on the timeline reaches 6 seconds. Again, now I've created the trigger. Once I hit OK, it'll automatically drop in the angry state for me as well. There we go. Let's keep going. So we'll go new, change state to thinking when our timeline reaches 9 seconds. Again, drops it in. Let's do our last two. So we're going to change the state. Oh, when it catches up. Change the state of our character. What are we up to? Talking. Doesn't work for the photographic characters, Esther. So good question. With this particular one here, you can actually you can use it with all the Illustrator characters, so the modern Illustrator characters and the classic Illustrator characters, but not the photographic characters because they don't have the expressions and poses built in. You've actually got to go and pick those particular photographic ones as you go. Yeah. So we've got talking at 12. And last but not least, question. So Ali said, could you copy and paste the triggers? Yeah, you could. I'm just showing you the long way because people like to see the long way sometimes. So it works the same way. So whoop, character, come on. My computer's being a little bit slow. I did a reboot before we kicked off. All right, last one, happy when the timeline ends on the slide. All right. So I've just added those triggers and it's automatically created each of those states for me. And then if I preview that, once we catch up, hopefully as the timer goes through, we should be changing all of those particular states with the characters as we go through. So I'll just let that one run. I'll just check for some questions while we're going. Yep, so yeah, as the question was, Ali, yeah, copy and paste for the trigger would be fine. I just went through the long way to show people how we were doing it, that's all. So there you can go. As we move through the actual timeline, the states automatically change to the various areas. There we go. All right. So just a quick one where basically you don't need to create the states first with the Illustrator characters, whether it be modern or classic. You can just go straight to the triggers and it will automatically create those for you as you go through. All right. So that's kind of our first one to have a bit of a look at. The second one I want to show you is this is only in Storyline 360 at the moment. Okay, doesn't mean it won't ever come to Storyline 3. I don't know when that timeline would have come on, but at the moment this is available within Storyline 360. And let me show you what I've got here. So I've got just a dice, and obviously with a dice, it's got 6 faces on it. So I actually want to have a different face for each of those faces, and I'm just going to call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right. And then on the right here, I've got my little police car. And I want to actually have some states when his lights are flashing. So one might be the red light on, the other one might be the blue light on. So again, I could go through the process and just insert and create them all from scratch. But Storyline 360 gives you the ability that if you're using images to represent the various states, you can actually do that in one fell swoop. So with this dice here, if I go down to my edit states, and then you'll see usually we go to the new state button. But in this particular situation, if you just go one to the right, you'll see there's another icon here that says insert pictures as states. Now, some of you might have seen this before and had to play with it or not realized what it did. But here's what it can do for me is that I can go, all right, I'm going to insert pictures as the states for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 sides. So let's click that button. I go to where those files are located. So here we are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to select them all and I'm going to hit open. And what will happen is Storyline will automatically bring those into the project and it will rename them whatever the name of the file is. So with one fell swoop, there you go. I've got all my different states in, ready to go, and I can add my triggers to activate on those as I see fit. Same with my police car here. As I said, I've got some lights I want to bring in. So a red flashing light and a blue flashing light. So again, I could just add them individually, or because I know they're set up as pictures or I've set them up previously in Photoshop or Paint.net or whatever the case may be, I hit my old edit states, pop across to the insert pictures as state again. Let's locate those pictures. So here we are, police car with the blue light flashing and the red light flashing. So they're the two I want. So again, I'll select both of those guys and I'll hit open. Once more, Storyline 360 will drop those into the project. It'll name them, whatever the name of the files are, and then I'm good to go to add those changed states to make it look like the siren's going or the lights are flashing as we go through the actual project. Okay, so another little quick and easy one that I've kind of can throw in that you can see just kind of speed up your workflow when it comes to building. All right, now that's a quick one. The other one was a quick one. Now I want to show you a couple of examples where it's a little bit more involved. I'll just double check our questions while we're going. So Ali, if I had an animation, e.g. a fade, would it apply to each change of state? Absolutely. If you added the fade to it, you could make that happen as well. And we're actually going to see that in a moment on how you go about doing that. Kylie, so with the dice example, where there was two images of one, okay, which I changed the initial state to one and then the normal state would be ignored. It depends on how you want to work. What I do here is I kind of have just like the normal as here's my normal state or my resting state. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I tend to find when setting up triggers, it makes it easy to track, especially if I'm using a number variable. So if I've set number one, if the number variable is set to one, I know I'm showing the one state as opposed to showing the normal state, which can get a bit confusing. So that's one of the reasons why I've got them in there. And generally, besides being initially seen with the normal state, the rest of them will take over as we go through. Yeah. All right. Let's show you some cool stuff when it comes to animations. All right. Now, what I've got here is I've got a ton of buttons. And what I've done is I've actually animated the hover state. So rather than just changing the color or just changing what the text says, what I've actually done is I've gone through and animated each of those hover states. So this might be a little bit jarry on with the internet, but hopefully it comes through. So I'm going to preview it so you can see what it looks like. Just get my bouncing head out of the way. And here we go. So here's all my buttons. And then what I've done is I've just added that hover state, but then I've also added a little entrance and exit animation to the hover state. It's not hard to do, but the nice thing about it just kind of makes your buttons feel a little bit more dynamic rather than just the whole color changing and moving on. So that's a very simple one with a black line that zooms in and out. You can also get into things like a little wheel in, wheel out animation. I've also got kind of a split, so split out and split in. Little line at the side. So again, you can make these adjustments or adapt however you see fit. So this one again is a little animate in, animate out for my hover. Click me now. That's kind of not very subtle, but yep, tells me that's what I need to do. I've also got other ones that use shapes. So this is like the diamond shape animation that I've just added to the hover state, just to make it look a bit interesting. I've also got some other options. So some black lines zooming up on either side. Again, it's all just basic shapes adding to the hover state with some general little animation on it. That one's across the top. What's this one? Oh, yeah, so a little arrow. So a little arrow comes down the bottom as I get close to something. So if I hover over it, it might point at something that I need to pay attention to or look at or click on, as the case may be. I can got little icons that can zoom in and also fade out depending on when I need them. This one's got some little, like some stars on it. So you can also have external stuff to your buttons, a little bit of animation added to it. We're in the next row. Okay, so that's just kind of like a draw your attention, just like a very, very strong impact. This one's got a double on it. So you can add double animations to make this stuff happen. This one here is just a border. So it just wheels in and wheels out. Again, very, very simple to make that happen. And these last few, what I've done with these ones, not only have I animated the hover state, because all those top ones are all hover states, I've also animated the selected states. So if I hover over a button, you can see a little white line kind of zooms along the bottom. But then if I click the button, the selected state takes over and the whole button fills out to white. All right. My next button, similar process. This time the white line is going up the left-hand side so I can see that it's active. If I click on that, then the animation brings it across. And this last one, got the little white line going down the right-hand side. Again, once it comes down, if I click on it, it goes into the selected state, then it can animate that across. And there's a bit of a kind of an illusion there. What I've done is I've turned these into a button set. So when I swap from the left-hand button here to the right-hand button here, it actually looks like it's pushing the blue button back to where it was. So again, it's just a nice little subtle effect that just makes things a little bit more interesting, a bit more engaging. As far as how do you create the effect, as I said, it's very, very simple. So let me get out of here and let's just show you a couple of quick little examples. So I've just created a shape. I'm going to make my buttons out of normal shapes. Now this will work with the buttons as well if you insert the buttons, but I like to kind of get back to a bit of the raw stuff and have a look at the basic shape. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the shape and I'm going to add the hover state. So I'm going to add the hover state. So it's just a built-in state. Now for this first one, I'm going to make sure I'm in the hover state. And let's just add kind of that little black line across the bottom. So it's just, again, it's just a shape. There we go. Let's change the color, make it black. I might get rid of the outline. And the nice thing about this is you can play with this as much as you want, so you've got a lot of opportunity with it. And let's just pop that to the bottom. All right. And then if I select that shape, just making sure the black shape's selected, I can just add an entrance and exit animation as I would normally. So I am in the hover state itself. So let's have this one, I don't know, maybe we'll have it, let's have it wipe across from the right. Give it half a second. And let's get it wipe back out the same direction. So if I don't click on it, then it's going to wipe back out. So again, it's just an exit animation, back to the left, and I've just made it a little bit faster. So that's the half a second. So it's going to come in half a second and then zoom out half a second. If I hit done, all right, let's just preview it and have a look really, really quickly. Yeah, Paul, it's a very simple effect you can throw in just to make your buttons look a little bit more interesting. So now there you go. When I hover over it, in comes the line. And then when I hover back off it, it actually zooms out again as well. Right. So that's the nice thing about it. You can actually just bring in some little bits and pieces, same process. So the ones I showed you on the previous ones, the lines running down the left or down the right or across the bottom, they're all the same format. But if we wanted to create one like one that splits open to a different color or has a diamond shape, if you remember those ones, it's slightly different how we'd go about doing that. What we'd have to do is we actually have to add an item to animate. Right, this is just part of the way that states work. So let me show you what I mean. I'm on my next button, and this one, let's add the split, for example. So I'll go edit states, and I'm going to add a hover state. So same thing, it's still a hover state, but I'm not going to add an animation to what's here. I need to create like a colored version of that particular button. And that's what I'm going to animate, because what's going to happen is it's actually animating over the top of the original button. All right. If you try to animate this, it can get a bit funky as how it works. So just be aware of that. So if I'm just going to insert a shape, let's just grab a rectangle shape. All right. Just check the dimensions. So it's 128 by 41. So I'll make sure that the one I've created is 128 by 41 as well. So it's the same size. Let's make it, I don't know, let's make it orange. And I'm going to just type next in it. So same font size, same font itself. And then I'm going to add the animation to this orange, this new version. So I'll go animation, and let's just do a split animation. And still be half a second. Let's split out from the center. So vertical out. And then the exit will also be a split, but this time I'll go vertically. All right. And then all I need to do is just line up those two buttons so that the animated one is directly on top of the original one. And I can use that via my arrange and align tools located under the format menu. All right. Once that's done, I'll hit done editing states. Let's have a quick preview. All right, there we go. So you can use that same process for any of the, you could use it for a fade in, you could use it for a shape, a split, a movement, whatever the case may be. And the selected states, which I showed you before on the example, it's done the same way. So these ones down here, which had the selected state on them, I've just created a selected state, same process, and I've added the animation to that. So it animates in and animates out when the learner clicks on selected, and when it unselects, the animation out kicks into play as well. All right, so that's something I really recommend jumping in and have a bit of a play with. You can have a lot of fun with it. All right, here's our last handy hint. We've got a good 5 minutes up our sleeves, so plenty of time. All right, So what I've got here is I've got my dice, and what I've got is when the learner clicks the dice, two things are going to happen. All right, I'm just going to preview it so we can see. It's going to animate the dice. So it's going to believe the dice has been rolled. You're going to hear an audio file play, which is the sound of the dice kind of clattering on the table. And then the state is going to change to whatever that random number variable is, whatever it is between 1 and 6. So if I click on it, there we go, a little bit of an animation, it spins, and away we go again. And we can keep clicking as many times as we need to, and each time it will change and update as we see. So what I've done is I've just created the same thing, what we would normally do, and added the animation and the audio directly to the state. Now, this is the cool thing about it. I have no triggers here. I'll pop this out so you can see. There are no triggers here which are telling Storyline to play that audio file. All right. Because I've got the audio file directly inserted onto the state itself, it's just going to automatically play it when it changes to that state. Okay. So there's a couple of questions in the chat. So we'll come back and answer those as we go through. But I just want to kind of cover this one off very, very briefly, and then I'll come back and answer those questions. So how do we do this then? How do we go about, because if you have a look at the state, if we have a look at one, we can see there's a little audio icon on the actual item itself. All right, well, let's look at how this is done. I'm going to go back to my example. All right, I'll quickly import all of my states so they're ready to go. Okay, and here's how I'm going to set up an animation and the audio on each of the states. Okay, so let's select one. So I've selected one, and you'll notice that when I click on one, the animations are grayed out. All right, I actually can't add an animation to this. I could duplicate it and pop it on top and animate it, but the problem is when you duplicate and pop something on top, if it's going to move in a way that they'll see the original item below it, then it's going to kind of ruin the illusion. So here's what I referred to as the magic cut and paste trick. And this is the first area where this can be used. I'm in the editing states. I'm on state one. I've selected it. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go Control X to cut it. And I'm going to go Control V to paste it back. The minute I cut it and paste it back, look what's happened. I can now add an animation to that item, to that particular state. All right, let me show you again. So if I go to two selected, but I can't add an animation. See here. But if I select it, cut and paste it, so Control X to cut it off my slide, and Control V just to paste it back. I've done nothing else except cut and paste it. Now the animation is enabled. So I've kind of tricked Storyline into saying, oh yeah, I can animate this. This is no problems at all. And then away I go. I can add my spin animation and go from that. Is it a bug? Good question. I don't think so. All right, maybe it is, but it's a good bug if it is, because it allows us to do a lot of cool stuff. All right. It also allows me to add the audio file. So if I go to 3, just to show you, if I pop up here to insert the audio, I can insert the audio, but it's going to insert the audio separately. I want to make sure the audio is playing when that particular state turns up. Okay, so I'm going to go through my process where I'm going to cut and paste it, cut, paste. And then while I've got that selected, I'm going to pop across here to my insert, come across to audio, and I'm going to select the audio file I want to play, which in this case is my dice roll audio file here. And you'll see it's added it to the state, not the slide. Okay, so the nice thing about that is when it changes to that particular state, it's going to automatically play that audio file. I don't need to add a trigger to do so. Okay, and that's all I've done with this example over here. So every single one of these guys, I've cut it, I've pasted it back, I've added an animation, and I've inserted the audio file. So Control X, Control V, and then you'll be amazed what the states will actually allow you to do. All right. The only thing left on this particular activity now is to add all the relevant triggers as I go through to set the random number and also change the states based on what that random number is set to. All right, Last but not least, we've just hit the 2:30. This is a very quick one, and it's kind of expanding on what I just spoke about when it comes to the magic cut and paste. All right. I've got two characters here. You can see I've got Lily on this side. I've got a normal state. I've got a hover state, and I've got a selected state. All right. Same with good old Rubes over here. So when it comes in, okay. Now, let me show you the difference between these two characters. And again, this is where the magic cut and paste has come into play. Both of them have selected states. So when I click on Lily, she moves to the selected state. But if I hover back over her, see how it kind of jumps to the right? The hover state tries to take over again. All right. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That is Storyline's default behavior. All right. So the minute I hover over something, it's going to change to the hover state. Now, let me show you good old Ruben here. All right. He's got his hover state, but this time when I click on him, he just stays in the selected state. He doesn't try and put the hover state back into play until he's unselected again. Then the hover state kind of reactivates. And this is done, again, very, very simply by that control, that copy and paste trick. So good old Lily here, she was the one that was kind of jumping around the place. So I'm going to edit. I'm going to go to the selected state, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm just going to Control X to cut her off the actual state, and then Control V to paste her back on the state. Now that I've done that, when I hit Done Editing States and preview it again, unless Storyline's going to make a liar out of me, which hopefully it shouldn't. Now, when I select her, you can see that that hover state's not trying to take over. Okay. So that's just one thing I kind of wanted to share with you, is that if your states are misbehaving when you get a bit creative with them, try the cut and paste trick. You don't have to do anything special. Just open the state, select it, Control X to cut it off the slide, Control V to paste it back on the slide. And 99% of the time, it'll actually get up and working for you the way you want it to work. Okay. So ladies and gents, that brings us to the end of our time together. So very, very short and sweet. So just before we finish up, if this type of stuff is of interest to you, like these kind of tricks or tips or techniques, please keep an eye out on our additional webinars. And if you'd like to do some more kind of structured training, which does cover all that stuff I've shared with you, don't forget we are the Articulate Certified Training Partner for Australia and New Zealand. We offer the basic and advanced certified training programs, which were written in conjunction with Articulate themselves. And we also offer our own in-house master program, which kind of looks at a lot of this stuff in much, much more detail, kind of digs deep into things like gamification, what else can I do with states, etc. We also build content. So if you need help with your content or you're looking for some off-the-shelf content, we can certainly help you out with that. And the other thing we do, which is our kind of crowning glory, is our Birch Learning platform. So if you're looking for a learning platform to assist you in managing not only your online learning, but your face-to-face learning, your webinars, or even your on-the-job assessments, which a lot of LMSs don't appear to do, we can certainly help you out with that. So please don't hesitate to reach out and give us a yell if we can assist you with any of those items. All right, now there were a couple of questions, so let me see if I can hit those very, very quickly before people disappear. I think I got most of them. There was a couple back here. Let's have a look. All right, so Isla asked, how did I do the one that circled around the button? So all I did there, Isla, was I just created another shape. So I'll flip back across so you can see it. So we'll pop back across in here. I think that was this one, yep. So all I did was I just created another shape, made it a bit bigger than the actual button itself, and animated that particular shape. Right. So that's the one that kind of sprung out. The other one, which was this one, did I have that one? Yeah, this one here. Same thing. All I've done is I've created the black button to go over the top, but I've made it no fill, and I've just thickened up the border and added a wheel animation on it. So that's what's actually created that one there. So I preview that. You'll be able to see that one. Yeah, so that's all it is. I've just added the border only. I've left it with an empty fill and added that wheel in, wheel out animation to give that effect. What else we got? Can we use customized states and have them the master elements? I think you can, Philip. Hey, I haven't actually done it much myself. I tend to build them on the actual slides itself, but certainly could add them as a master element. I don't see any reason why not. Everything else works if you pop it on the master slides. Might just have a bit of a test and a bit of a play with it to see if we can get it working for yourself. Yeah, that's a great idea, because if the client does want to change how a button functions, then absolutely, you don't have to change it everywhere. Just do it on the master slides. Cool. Let's see, what else have we got? Carolyn's asked if we share the source files. Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. Let me have a bit of a sticky beak. I don't think there's anything major in there, so I'm happy to, I'll see if I can get them sorted. And when the recording email comes out tomorrow, I'll try and link that to it as well, so you've got a copy of it to have a bit of a play with. All righty. What do we got? Yep, short and sweet. Thanks, guys. What else we got? Yeah, a bit of micro, absolutely. A lot of the stuff you can use in your micro learning. That's true. The one that rotates around it, which one was that? Oh yeah, that was the right one, wasn't it? Yeah. Cool. All right. So ladies and gents, thank you so much for coming and hanging out this afternoon. I hope we've given you something that's inspired you, given you a bit of inspiration to walk away with. Please keep an eye on your emails tomorrow. The recording will come out and you'll have that to refer to as well. Finally, from all of us at Be Online, please stay safe and sound, look after yourself, and we will catch up with you at the next roundup. We look forward to seeing you then. Cheers.